In this video, now that we've introduced the prisoner's dilemma of exchange, we can go back and revisit our first two questions to begin to piece religions together based upon these answers. Again, a religion has to answer the question, what happens when you die? And there are three answers to that question. And how do you find meaning or purpose, or more specifically, how do you overcome there are three methods or three ways of power to do so. Combining these gives us 9 basic religions. And that may seem a simplification, especially looking at that world religions tree, but again, we're referring to these trunk religions down here, and there are only about 4 or 5 basic religions by combining those answers to the question. So let's start building some religions. The first religion we're going to take a look at is going to answer the first question and say something happens when you die, and it's going to overcome the prisoner's dilemma of exchange using the Eastern technique. So here we're going to be taking a look at Hinduism. Then, after we look at Hinduism, we're going to turn to Buddhism. Now, Buddhism is primarily a non-theistic religion, and we're going to use it to look at an agnostic form of Buddhism, to look at how an agnostic who answers the question, I don't know what happens when you die, but still be able to overcome death, and still be able to find meaning and purpose, or to overcome that prisoner's dilemma of exchange. They're also going to use the Eastern technique here. Then we're going to take a look at monotheism, which answers the question that something happens when you die. And we're going to look at the monotheistic response to the prisoner's dilemma of exchange. And here we'll be looking at both Christianity and Islam. And we're going to take a look at the distinction between those two religions as we go. The final religion that we're going to take a look at is going to be humanism or atheism. And here we're going to say that nothing happens when you die, but still we're going to have to overcome death. And we're going to do so through a humanistic technique. Or we're going to solve the prisoner's dilemma using a humanistic technique to do so. So these are the big 5 religions that we're going to take a look at. And we're going to distinguish between Christianity and Islam, even though they're using the same technique. And so if you recall from Cary Osgood's informatic graph, that this encompasses about 90% of the entire world. And if you take a look over in the other 11%, most of these are also going to use an Eastern technique to overcome the prisoner's dilemma of exchange. So here, with just 5 religions, or 5 ways of answering those questions, we can take a pretty good look at how humanity itself is going to overcome death, and how humanity itself is going to be able to find meaning and purpose, to solve the prisoner's dilemma of exchange, and to overcome selfishness and evil to maximize the quality of life or the level of transcendence or ecstasy that they are experiencing. So these are the religions we're going to take a look at. And just a disclaimer that I am an economist. I am not a religious scholar. I am also a white male from a middle-class background. So I'm not going to have the in-depth knowledge needed to fully go deep into all of these religions. These religions have been around for thousands of years, and many people who are a lot smarter than I am have dedicated their entire lives to studying these religions, and maybe even one specific religion, these theologians. So we're not going to go that in-depth for these religions. We're going to give an overview of these religions, focusing on that prisoner's dilemma of exchange, or how the basic beliefs of these religions work. However, I realize that there are multiple hundreds of ways of interpreting these religions. And so I apologize if the presentation that we're going to give of these religions do not match your own personal view if you hold to one of these religions. But I'm doing my best to go ahead and present this the best way I can as an evangelist to try to convince you of these religions as we go. Because in these religions that have happened for thousands of years, there is great wisdom, and there is great ways of overcoming selfishness and evil, of overcoming the prisoner's dilemma of exchange, that can be beneficial for anybody to listen to. A religion cannot exist for thousands of years and have no value. So with those disclaimers, we're going to go ahead and begin the study of our first religion, which will be Hinduism, in the next video.